Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And after some very intriguing comments over the weekend, do the Phillies have a Nick Castellanos problem?
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me for some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Go to www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. So we're going to get into the series over the weekend in Arizona. If there's any concerns with the Phils right now, we're going to talk about some roster discussions as the postseason draws nearer. But Nick Castellanos stole some headlines this weekend as he made some very interesting remarks when asked about his lack of playing time, his recent performance, becoming a platoon player, basically all of this stuff. And I know I led in with, do the Phillies have a Nick Castellanos problem? And here's the crazy thing about this, right? For 99% of the world population, the answer to this question would absolutely be yes. A player comes out and he's saying, I don't talk to the manager all that often, and I kind of just hit when I feel like it, and I don't know, I can't answer these questions you're asking me about how I feel about the lack of playing time because it's a bit of a controversial subject, so I'm just not going to touch it. Like, these are all things that Nick Castellanos more or less said this weekend in a media availability stint where he first really opened up about, well, I guess didn't really open up about how he's been feeling about not playing. Now, Nick Castellanos had some solid performances in this series against the Diamondbacks. Well, a solid performance in the game he appeared in. He's not a bad baseball player, right? He's just been cold, and other outfielders got hot, and you were creating platoons other places. So you're like, why not right field? And the next thing you know, in a topsy-turvy world that has been the Philadelphia Phillies outfield's season, he finds himself as part of a platoon and a rotation and all of this stuff kind of changing around. Now, do I think Nick Castellanos stinks as a baseball player? No. Do I think what's going on right now is for the best interest of the team? Absolutely. And to get back to that 99% of the population conversation, the 1%, or maybe the 0.01%, or maybe the 0.0000 repeating 1% is Nick Castellanos. It's funny because the gut feeling would tell you he's ticked off. He's probably not in a great space with the locker room. He doesn't talk to the manager. All of this stuff, major red flags, and could it mess up the Phillies' chemistry and all of that? But this is a dude who Scooby-Doo is his favorite superhero, who wanders around when the team goes to Colorado, out in the trees, out by the bullpens. Like, he's just I don't want to say odd, because I do really like the guy, and there's something endearing about his personality, as long as you're not the reporter asking him difficult, or as he's previously in his Phillies tenure said, stupid questions. I don't know. He's just kind of like, he's his own man, Nick Castellanos. So where our immediate reaction, like our knee-jerk gut reaction to any athlete acting like this would be, he's becoming a locker room problem. And for Nick Castellanos, I think he's just kind of matter of fact about all of it. I don't really talk to Rob Thompson all that much. And for an average player, that might be, I don't like the guy. For Nick Castellanos, maybe him and Rob Thompson don't see eye to eye on some stuff. We know that he was pulled from a game for a defensive replacement in Miami earlier this year. That led to him making comments in the dugout, which then led to him being sat for the next game. So, like, we know there's stuff they don't see eye to eye on, but it really could be as simple as Nick only talks to people when he has to talk to people. I don't know. I don't want to overblow this situation because, frankly, I don't think the Phillies have a Nick Castellanos problem. Now, is this a good sign for Nick Castellanos' tenure here in Philadelphia going forward? He's heading into the final year of a contract next year. There's already been talks about potential shakeups of roster needed because they've run it back so many times. He seems like a movable piece that has become more expendable as the season goes along. And I'm talking about next year, not this year, obviously, because I still think he is a valuable part of this baseball team, especially in October, where he has been a stone cold killer. I just think, and it's kind of funny to me in a way, like Philadelphia still has not figured out Nick Castellanos. And I'm not here trying to tell you, oh, I've figured out Nick Castellanos, because I don't know what goes through this guy's head with half the stuff that he says. But what I do know is that he doesn't seem to be a disliked player. He doesn't seem to be a guy that guys talk about in the locker room like, yeah, I don't really mess with Nick over here. Like, no, he's just a guy that says things very bluntly, says things in kind of a weird style. And because of that, we jump to conclusions as to how he's probably feeling. I have something that Philadelphia should have figured out a long time ago about Nick Castellanos. And if you have not yet, this is your wake-up call. If you think you know what Nick Castellanos is thinking, no, you do not, right? Now, there are some base level things that we do know, right? Does he want to play? Yes. He's very clearly a competitor. And every competitor at the major league level wants to, or 99.9 of them, and we don't have any guys like this on the Phillies who don't want to play. They all want to be out there, right? So that's fair. You do know that about him. Do we know he's a streaky baseball player? Yes. Do we know that he's been big in October in the past for the Phillies? Yes. Do we know that he is better than league average as a baseball player? Absolutely, right? Like multi-time All-Star. Like this is a dude that can play baseball at the professional level. He just hasn't had a great year. So where we get ourselves into trouble, though, is when you look at a guy that clearly doesn't think the way the average person thinks, and you react to that person how the average person would act, right? Do you understand what I'm saying here? It's almost like you can't listen to anything Nick Castellanos says and try and interpret it because there is no way of truly interpreting what he's saying. And a lot of people are jumping to conclusions, and I hate that for us, and I hate that for Nick, because this is already a tough situation for him. Like he's essentially losing his job on a local and national stage, right? And he is a guy that has had a long Major League Baseball career, and I still think has productive at-bats in him for this year's team. Clearly what we saw over the weekend. But that's not easy for anybody. And then he's not going to change his personality to try and answer questions a way that he doesn't get scrutiny for. So then he answers his questions in his weird ways, and people jump to conclusions. And he's kind of like this, I don't want to say distant, but this aloof guy. And people associate that with either he doesn't care or he's checked out or he's given up on this team. There were comments that he made over the weekend that maybe people missed, where he said, I want to do whatever it takes to make sure that Philadelphia wins a World Series, right? He's still all in on doing what it takes for this team to help them win. And if that means taking a step back, okay, you ready for your Nick Castellanos translation right here from me? Not playing sucks. He wants to play more. He's not playing more. When he does play and he plays well, it's kind of bittersweet because he's like, hey, see, I can still do this. Why am I not playing? So even when he has success, it's kind of like, damn, but I'm not reaping the benefits of that success, at least from a personal perspective. Like we know why the Phillies have decided to go this way because he hasn't been great this year. But that's all it is. He's a guy that wants to play, that's not afraid to say that he wants to play. And he just goes about his business in a strange way. So I say all of this because it became a big point of conversation around the Phillies. And I don't want people with the postseason just a week away, right? We're heading into the final week of the regular season. The Phils are off tonight. They'll start their penultimate series tomorrow at Citizens Bank Park. And the last thing I want is for this fan base to turn on Nick Castellanos, for media to unnecessarily prod him with questions that we already kind of know the answer to. And I understand it's the job. I'm not trying to be I'm not mad at any reporters for asking him questions. My bigger thing is ask the questions, but then don't take some wild interpretation of how he's feeling because he answered a question with a certain tone or a certain face, or he kind of worded things weird. He is the exception to the rule when it comes to press conferences, right? You can't really try and break down what he says and apply it to the way that normal people would mean that stuff. And it may sound like I'm covering for Nick Castellanos. Maybe I am in some ways because I believe we need that guy. I do believe he's gotten a raw deal at points in his time here in Philly where he gets criticized too much. And I think some of that comes from the person, not the player. And I don't think that's fair. In this instance, I understand asking the question, but let's not try and make more of this than what it is. All right? He's upset he's not playing more. He's willing to do what it takes for this team to win. He's continuing to be a member of this team. And I see no problem with the current situation. And I really had no issue with his comments. So we move on. All right? The Phillies are going to be fine. Their locker room's going to be fine. We're heading into October. We have much bigger fish to fry than figuring out if Nick Castellanos and Rob Thompson are going to go grab a beer after the game. All right? That's just my opinion on it. So speaking of, why don't we get to the baseball side of it? The Phillies dropped 2 or 3 in Arizona over the weekend. There were some rough patches for individual players and the team as a whole. So is there anything to be concerned about? I'll tell you why I don't think so. But, hey, we got to talk about a couple players specifically as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, let's talk about our friends over at Zippix. They're the absolute best. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, Zippix has you covered with their nicotine and caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, Zippix provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings and the hand-to-mouth habit without vaping or smoking. Zippix can be a helpful tool as you work to reduce your dependence on vaping. It's available in 6 great flavors with 2 milligram and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are also a game changer. You got to check them out. I've done the energy toothpicks. They sent us a bunch of them. And honestly, when I'm having one of those long days, I'm just getting in the car to go to the next thing I got to go to. Pop one in my mouth. I'm just driving around. And next thing you know, hey, I feel more awake. Wow, these things really do work. Oh, and the flavor's really good too. Honestly, I use this stuff pretty much daily to just give myself a little bit of extra focus when the day gets long. And that's why they're the best. So go to ZippixToothpicks.com. Use code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. Must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's ZippixToothpicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Zip more. Smoke less with Zippix Toothpicks. Let's also talk about 5-Hour Energy because caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. It's real quick. You don't have to sit around and drink 4,000 ounces of coffee. You don't have to have this cup in your cup holder that could spill at any time, burn your leg, everything. Next thing you know, you're having a bad day. No, 5-Hour Energy helps you have a great day. They help you zone in. It's quick. It's easy. Like I said, it's portable. And the flavors, my goodness, the flavors are amazing. 17 different new awesome flavors from 5-Hour Energy. That's the best. How many flavors of coffee are there? I mean, they're all kind of the same, right? You don't get any of the tropical special flavors with coffee. That's why you got to check out 5-Hour Energy. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. All right, let's talk a little bit about the series in Arizona because the Phils dropped 2 out of 3 out there against the Diamondbacks. The piggyback start didn't go terribly on Friday night. They end up winning that game, so that's good, right? Like you love to see that, but it was, I don't know, it felt clunky. It was the first time they did it. They're still trying to figure it out. My biggest complaint for the piggyback start was that you waited too long to try it because if you need to work some things out, you don't really have a lot of runway to make sure that plane takes off. So I had no issue with them doing it. I thought it went all right. I don't know how I'd feel about that setup with Taijuan Walker starting, then Walker Buehler relieving in the postseason. Like that doesn't feel like something that would inspire a lot of confidence for me right now if you were taking on the Dodgers in an elimination game, just for example, right? But who knows? We've still got a week to figure out, and the postseason is kind of weird, and the leash gets shorter, so it's something to keep an eye on. But there were some, like the biggest rough performance, honestly, was probably Ranger Suarez getting absolutely shelled just right off the rip yesterday in the series finale. Phil's got smoked. If you were watching the Eagles game and saw one of the greatest football comebacks of all time, maybe you didn't care that the Phillies got smoked. I'm here to tell you, you probably shouldn't care anyway for a couple of reasons. So a lot of this is high-level theory stuff. So let's start with the logical side of it. Here's your logic, right? It's an off day. We don't really, this late into the season with the final off day of the year, have to do too deep of a standings check-in outside of two places, right? We know that the Philadelphia Phillies are in the postseason. We know that the Philadelphia Phillies are National League East champions. So let's just take a look at the NL surrounding the Phillies. Milwaukee is 3 games up, 6 to play. Make it 4 games because they hold the tiebreaker. The Phillies would have to go 6-0. The Brewers would have to go 2-4. Or if the Brewers went 1-5 in their last 6, the Phillies could go 5-1. Does that sound likely to you? I know. It doesn't sound likely to me either. So the Phillies are probably not going to be the 1 seed unless some epic collapse by Milwaukee happens. And even then, the Phils pretty much have to win out. The Dodgers are 4 games back of the Phillies. The Phillies have the tiebreaker on the Dodgers. So with 6 to play, it's going to be very difficult for the Dodgers to catch the Phillies. The magic number is 2. Now, neither team plays tonight, but that means if the Phillies play the Marlins on Tuesday and they win and the Dodgers lose, it's over. The Phillies are locked into the 2 seed, right? You just have to win 1 game and LA has to lose 1 game, or you win 2 and then nothing has to happen, or LA loses 2 and then you could lose out, right? Like the Phillies are locked into the 2 seed. So that's the logical part of this conversation of why you don't have anything really to worry about right now. And it leads me to my other points. Do you think, right, the players will tell you, hey, Arizona, they're fighting for a postseason spot. We're trying to get to the 1 seed. We're trying to finish this season strong and head into October with some really good momentum. We go out there and try and win every game. We're not giving away at bats. We're not giving away outings on the mound. But if you really injected the Philadelphia Phillies with truth serum and, hey, tell me, are you as zoned in for these games where you're pretty much locked into seeding as you were when you were trying to win the division, trying to make the postseason, trying to potentially track down Milwaukee for the 1 seed and hold off the Dodgers for the 2 seed? They would almost undoubtedly to me say, nah, it's not the same. Now, it's still you're still out there in a Major League Baseball game, and the intensity's still up, and they're still trying. I'm not saying they're just yeah, I don't care. I'll just throw fastballs down the middle. It's batting practice today from Ranger Suarez. No, I'm not saying they're just completely mailing it in. But I'm saying that at some level, you can't be as focused as you were with the big-time games for locking down postseason, seeding, and as locked in as you're definitely going to be come October. So that's one part of it. And that doesn't completely excuse the Phillies if they just have terrible performances individually as a team. But just don't overreact. You know, if you're a fan of this team think about your mentality for this past, I don't know, let's call it 4 days, the weekend, and then like Thursday, Friday. Did you feel zoned in on the Phillies as you have been this year? Or did you feel like kind of, okay, they've got everything handled. Eagles have a game, beautiful weather, last weekend of summer. I'll lock back in once Red October starts, right? Because mission accomplished for the regular season. I think a lot of fans have started to feel that way. And that's kind of how I get the impression that it would be natural for a player to feel, right? To a lesser extent because they're actually playing in the games. The one other thing, and this is not me saying it's good that the Phillies lost. I'm glad they lost. Yeah, they need to lose to get brought back down to earth so they focus. But part of me is kind of okay with them dropping a series, right? And maybe a mental reset of, okay, see, we do still lose series. We do still lose games. We're fallible, right? We're not this unstoppable force of nature that they've looked like largely for the month of September. Like we are a team that can still get beat. Let's remind ourselves of that as we head into October so that we're focused on the right things. We're putting the right effort in. We're doing everything we need to be at our best, right? It was not a bad time to drop a series because one, it didn't really affect the standings whatsoever for you. And two, it kind of gives you the chance for the mental reset heading into October. But now's the chance where you got to kind of get things rolling again because as soon as you lock down the 2 seed, you are going to be just planning out your roster decisions and resting guys where you can. So this week needs to be a good week for the Phillies. We'll talk about the games they play tomorrow. But coming up next, we're going to discuss some potential roster decisions for October. Matt Gelb of The Athletic wrote a very intriguing article about some places the Phillies could be looking. I'll talk to you about what he wrote and what my thoughts are as we continue today's episode. Let's talk about Nutrafol first, though, because you've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. So maybe you're already losing your hair and you say, I need to stop this. Well, Nutrafol is perfect for you. But maybe you want to get out ahead of the curve and make sure, you know what? I've seen a little bit of like hair on my hands in the shower when I wash my hair. I feel like I'm getting a little thin, like the power alleys are coming in a little bit. I need to clear this up. Or maybe you're just a Philadelphia sports fan who, even when the teams are playing well, you feel like you want to rip your hair out. Well, you got to protect your hair. And that's why Nutrafol is the absolute best. And you could feel good about it knowing Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. Super simple and easy to take. 4 pills with a meal, no prescription necessary. You could see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code Locked On MLB. That's Nutrafol, Nutrafol.com, promo code Locked On MLB. And let's talk about our friends over at Monarch Money as well, because you got to keep your finances in line, folks. And it's really hard to keep track of all your financial accounts and what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. Like, I don't know, you, me, everybody. That's why it's perfect for all of us. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending so you know where your money's going, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It really helps you keep your life, your finances, and everything in line. So what's the old expression, right? You want your money to work for you. But if you don't know where your money is, it can't do that. That's why Monarch Money is so important. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, some roster decisions that are going to have to be made this week pretty much as the Phillies prepare for the postseason. Now, if they get the bye, they'll have a little bit more time, but they're in their last 6 games of the regular season. Yeah, folks, we made it. And if you want to be up to date on what the Phillies do with the roster, yeah, I said do. I'm a child. Make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're listening to us in podcast form, and you're hitting that subscribe button to the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also watch the show on YouTube. And subscribing will keep you updated, get you notifications when new episodes are posted, so you don't miss any of the big news that's coming as the Phillies make the final stretch run into Red October. But anyway, so Matt Gelb wrote a very intriguing article in The Athletic last week, and I just haven't had time to get to it because of all the interesting stuff that's going on with actual playoff seeding and games and the strategies and all of that. What do the Phillies do with their postseason roster? Now, this is not the expanded postseason rosters anymore. It's 26-man roster. So you got to figure out how you're going to make guys work. And with Alec Boehm returning on Friday night, with Trey Turner progressing well, right? He is ahead of schedule by all accounts, right? He's going to be fine. He'll be ready. We should see him play baseball this week. And that's a great thing heading into October, because you don't want his first at bat in like 3 weeks to be, hey, step into the box in a playoff game. So he should be back. But with those guys returning, what do you do with Otto Kemp? What do you do with Weston Wilson? What do you do with the guys in the bullpen that kind of feel like they're on the outside looking in of the what you're doing here with the rotational decisions in the bullpen, right? What do you do with the rotational decisions in the rotation? There's a lot of stuff. So let's break this down, right? You really need 3 starting pitchers. That's all you really need for the first round of the postseason, for the NLDS. Now, you would like other guys available who can start if needed. Injuries don't just get turned off in the postseason. Fatigue is a real thing that continues. So if a guy goes out there and he looks beat and has some trouble, or God forbid, knock on wood, something were to happen to one of the starters, you got to have other guys. So I do think Aaron Nola is going to be on the postseason roster. I do think Taijuan Walker is going to be on the postseason roster. I do think Walker Buehler is going to be on the postseason roster. But do they take up spots in the bullpen? Do you use those extra bullpen spots to then add extra depth offensively? I'm not really sure. Now, here's the good news. I want you to think about all this. If Aaron Nola is on the postseason roster, are we upset about it? He's been really good in the postseason. I would say no. Now, I'm not saying pitch him game 1. I'm saying just on the roster. I'm not mad at that. He's a usable piece. Walker Buehler, usable piece. Taijuan Walker, usable piece. Otto Kemp, Weston Wilson, usable pieces, right? Like, you have these guys that over the past month, with certain dudes going down and the September call-ups, everyone's pretty much stepped up big. So it gives the Phillies a good problem. You can add all of these guys. You have optionality with how you want to fill out this roster. Matt Gelb actually brought up a really intriguing point. Do the Phillies even consider maybe bringing up Johan Rojas, who has finished up his AAA season, is now saying, okay, well, hey, I'm available. I'm still a damn good defender. Or maybe just a pinch runner, right? Your bench is used less in October when it comes to everything. Rotation, bullpen, pinch hitters. Like, pinch hitters, it may go up a little bit more because you take advantage of like the different at-bats and everything, but you really cut down on the people you trust, which means you open up space for some intriguing combinations of like, I want this guy for this specific spot for one reason, and that's the only reason he's on this roster. And that means that a guy like Otto Kemp could find his way on if you want right-handed pop against a potential lefty reliever. Or maybe that's Weston Wilson, who has had the better OPS in his time with the Phillies this year. Or maybe you just want Rojas to run the bases for Kyle Schwarber when he gets walked in like the 9th inning of the game. Like, this is the good thing, because the Phillies have discovered in their up and down season so far this year And I say up and down only because it feels like a roller coaster, even though they've won more series than anybody in baseball. They've discovered a lot of these diamond in the rough type players, maybe not to start, but for certain specific situations in games. This is why it matters. When you lose a game in, I don't know, July, and everyone's annoyed, and people are like, Connor, how can you take a positive out of this? Because maybe you saw something from Otto Kemp where he saw a pitcher that was similar to a guy that you could face in the postseason. You say, I trust now that he could pinch hit in a spot, backs against the wall where maybe you can do that. But I'm not saying like that's reality, what I just laid out. That's just an example of like stuff you learn over 162 that really helps you this time of year. Now, I don't know what they do, but it's something to keep an eye on throughout this week as we quasi-react to games, because there will be a point where these games stop mattering. The whole series against the Twins may not mean anything for seeding. So we will dive into my theories on who gets what spots. But I just wanted to lay that out there, basically the idea that the Phillies are in a really good spot when it comes to postseason roster options. Having more guys that could make the postseason roster, to me, is always a good thing. Tough decisions. I'm glad I'm not the one who has to make them, but I will tell you what decisions I would make as the week continues. And we've got Phil's Marlins tomorrow. So an off day tonight. Enjoy your Monday. Gear back in for the final stretch run of the regular season. And then it's time to ratchet up for Red October. This is such a great time of the baseball year. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.